At the heart of downtown Chicago, nestled between sleek skyscrapers and the rhythmic rush of morning commuters, there stood an elegant financial institution, Hamilton Vaughn Private Banking. Inside its walls, wealth flowed seamlessly, and transactions worth fortunes happened quietly, behind polished glass and the hush of professional courtesies. But today, something would crack beneath that polished veneer. A black man stepped through the glass doors at exactly 9 a.m. His name was Nathaniel Carter, though few here seemed interested in asking. The morning sunlight poured in behind him, glinting off the marble floors and gleaming brass fixtures. His footsteps echoed in the cavernous lobby, but not in a way that drew attention. He dressed simply, an immaculately pressed sky-blue button-down shirt, khaki pants, and white sneakers. His wrist was bare, no designer watch to mark his status, no ostentatious signs of wealth. Nathaniel wasn't here as the CEO today. No meetings, no speeches, no television interviews or magazine covers. He was just another customer intending to withdraw $15,000 from his personal account. Money he had earned, money that was his. A routine transaction, he told himself. Something any client should be able to do without complication. And yet, as he stepped deeper into the lobby, his sharp gaze caught sight of a white man, middle-aged, wearing a tailored charcoal blazer. The man stood at the counter where a young brunette teller named Sarah Jennings was smiling warmly, counting out stacks of cash, clean, crisp bills, without a hint of hesitation. Nathaniel's eyes flicked to the transaction slip the man pocketed along with the cash. $20,000. No scrutiny. No didas. No problems. Nathaniel exhaled quietly through his nose, his jaw tightening for just a heartbeat before he relaxed it. He'd been here before. Not here at Hamilton Vaughn, his own institution, but in spaces like this. He recognized the silent mechanics of prejudice at play. But today, he had little patience left for it. He would not allow it in his house. He joined the short line, hands in his pockets, his expression composed and unreadable. Within moments, he stood before the next available teller. A blonde woman in her early 30s wearing a tailored navy blazer. Her nameplate read Emily Shaw. Unlike Sarah Jennings, Emily didn't smile. She didn't greet him. Her eyes met his only briefly before she reached beneath the counter and slid a clipboard toward him. "Fill this out," she said, her tone flat, mechanical. "No welcome. No pleasantries." Nathaniel studied her face for a moment. Cool, disinterested. Then he glanced at the clipboard. A standard withdrawal slip. He had no issue filling it out. Protocols were protocols. But something about the rigidness in her voice raised an old, familiar alarm. Still, he said nothing. He retrieved a pen from his pocket and wrote down the requested information, neat and precise. Then he slid the clipboard back across the marble counter along with his Illinois driver's license. His name, clear and legible. His photo, unmistakable. Emily took the slip but barely glanced at his ID. Instead, she skimmed the withdrawal amount and shoved the form back toward him. "We can't process this," she said curtly, folding her arms. Nathaniel frowned, his fingers brushing over the return form. "Excuse me, we don't handle large cash withdrawals like this," she repeated, her voice stiff. Nathaniel's brow furrowed. "I just watched that gentleman walk out with $20,000 in cash," he said calmly, nodding toward the man stepping onto the busy sidewalk outside. "You didn't hesitate for a second with him." Emily's lips thinned. "That's different." Nathaniel leaned in slightly, lowering his voice but sharpening it all the same. "How exactly is it different?" For the first time, Emily broke eye contact. Not out of discomfort, out of irritation. She flicked her gaze toward the back office, where a woman stood behind a glass wall, arms crossed, watching. Nathaniel followed Emily's gaze and found Victoria Langston, the branch manager. Mid-40s, expensively dressed, sharp-eyed. She had the look of someone who made decisions before pretending to consider alternatives. When their eyes met, Victoria gave Emily a slight, almost imperceptible nod. Emily straightened, emboldened. When she turned back to Nathaniel, her expression was colder. "I told you," she said, tapping the slip between them. We can't process this transaction. Nathaniel's patience thinned by another inch. And I'm asking why. Emily tapped her manicured nails slowly against the counter. It's unusual, she said finally, her voice artificially sweet. A cash withdrawal this large. It's suspicious. Suspicious. The word settled like lead in Nathaniel's chest. He had heard it before in other ways, in other places. He knew it when someone said one thing but meant another. He played this game his whole life, forced to justify his presence, his right to exist again and again. You didn't seem suspicious when he did the exact same thing, Nathaniel said. So, tell me, Emily, what's the difference? Her eyes flickered, just for a moment. Then she recovered. Sir, I don't make the rules. Nathaniel chuckled, humorless. No, you don't. But you sure know how to apply them selectively. Emily bristled. I need to get my manager, she snapped, turning on her heel and heading for Victoria's office without waiting for a reply. Nathaniel stood motionless, his fingers tapping idly against the marble. He felt the atmosphere shift, subtle but undeniable. Tellers glanced his way. Customers shuffled. Eyes turned, then quickly away. A few feet to his right, an older white woman, her name tag reading Linda Barrett, watched him with a conflicted expression. He met her gaze briefly. She offered a thin, hesitant smile. He did not return it. He knew how this ended. The door to the office swung open. Victoria Langston stepped out, heels clicking against the floor. Emily trailed behind her, lips curved in a smug half-smile. Victoria smoothed her blazer as she stopped before him. Good morning, sir, she said, her tone clipped and professional. I understand you're trying to make a large withdrawal today. Nathaniel met her gaze evenly. I am. She gave him a sympathetic look that was anything but. Unfortunately, we have certain security protocols in place for transactions of this size. Security protocols, Nathaniel echoed. For the safety of our customers and our staff, she said smoothly, we have to be cautious. So what does that mean for me? It means, Victoria said, we need to verify additional information before proceeding. Nathaniel tilted his head. You didn't need to verify anything for the last customer. I can't speak to other customers' transactions, Victoria said, voice growing sharper. But in this case, I'll need to confirm the source of your funds and verify your last deposit. Nathaniel's patience slipped another inch. You have my account in front of you. Look it up. Her expression hardened. I need you to cooperate, Mr. Carter. Nathaniel laughed, short and incredulous. Cooperate? I've given you everything you need. This isn't protocol. This is profiling. The word hung in the air like a slap. Emily stiffened. Victoria's jaw clenched. The room seemed to hold its breath. Victoria raised her hand. Across the room, the security guard stirred. Eli Matthews, mid-30s, white, ex-military. He approached the counter, slow and deliberate. I'm going to ask you again, Victoria said, her voice still polished. Can you verify the source of these funds? Nathaniel's jaw tightened. My paycheck, he said flatly. Same as every deposit before. Victoria's gaze flicked to Emily. And can you provide the exact amount? Nathaniel's fists clenched. You have my account number right there, he said. Look it up. That's not how we do things here. Nathaniel exhaled through his nose, his laugh low and bitter. Funny. That's exactly how you do things. Every other time. He stepped closer to the counter. What exactly about me makes you think I don't belong here? Silence. Emily's eyes flickered with uncertainty. Even she realized they had crossed a line. But Victoria didn't flinch. She flicked her gaze past him. Eli Matthews stopped beside Nathaniel. I'm going to have to ask you to leave, Eli said, his voice flat, impersonal. Nathaniel turned his head slowly, meeting the guard's eyes. And if I don't? Eli didn't answer. He reached out, wrapping a firm hand around Nathaniel's arm. Nathaniel braced himself. The next moment, he was yanked back, shoved toward the door. He stumbled but caught his balance just in time for Eli to shove him again. Harder, until his back collided with the glass. The door swung open. Cold air slapped his face as he was pushed outside. Behind him, Eli stood in the doorway. And then, insult to injury, his ID was tossed at his feet. The plastic card clattered on the concrete. Nathaniel's chest burned. He was seconds away from boiling over when another shadow fell over him. A second guard, Malcolm Reeves. Black, mid-30s, exhausted in a way Nathaniel recognized. Malcolm crouched down, picked up the ID, dusted it off carefully, then handed it back. "This place," Malcolm murmured just loud enough. "Always does this." Nathaniel's fingers brushed Malcolm's as he took it. "Doesn't matter what you do," Malcolm said quietly. "They'll never see you as more than what they want to see." Nathaniel stared at him, something hot and raw boiling under his skin. He pulled out his phone. Dialed. On the third ring, a crisp voice answered. "This is Daniel Rhodes." "Daniel," Nathaniel said. "I need you at the Chicago branch. Now." A sharp inhale. 15 minutes. Nathaniel hung up. The edges of his ID pressed into his palm as he steadied himself. "This is about to get real interesting," Malcolm muttered. Nathaniel said nothing. 15 minutes later, a sleek black car pulled to the curb. Out stepped Daniel Rhodes, chairman of Hamilton Coal and Nathaniel's oldest friend. White, early 50s, sharp eyes, real power. Daniel walked straight past Eli without acknowledgement. Inside, the bank seemed to freeze. Victoria's smile faltered as she realized who he was. "Mr. Rhodes," she greeted, her voice unsteady. "I wasn't expecting. If you were, this wouldn't have happened." Daniel cut her off, his tone cold. "What seems to be the misunderstanding?" She tried again. "No misunderstanding," Daniel said. "The only confusion is why my CEO was just thrown out of his own bank." Silence. Victoria's face drained of color. Emily's mouth opened, then snapped shut. Daniel turned to Nathaniel. "You want this branch clean house?" "Yes," Nathaniel said without hesitation. "Consider it done. Victoria está merced." "Sir." "You're done here," Daniel said. "Effective immediately." He turned to Malcolm. "You're promoted." "Sir." "You deserve better." Nathaniel returned to the counter. Emily stepped aside as if he were radioactive. Daniel nodded toward the teller station. "Process his withdrawal." The bills were counted, placed neatly before him. His money. His right. Nathaniel took a portion, slid it toward Malcolm. "Take the day off." Malcolm hesitated, then nodded. Nathaniel turned back to Victoria, meeting her eyes one last time. "You should have checked my ID." And with that, he walked out. This time, no one dared stop him. Join us to share meaningful stories by hitting the like and subscribe buttons. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell to start your day with powerful lessons and heartfelt empathy.